Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take stacks of sources, notes, research, all sorts of things, really, and we pull out the key insights for you. Today, we're tackling something critical in cybersecurity.
Absolutely.
Because let's face it, cyber threats are just constant. How we manage access to really sensitive systems, well, it's paramount.
Couldn't agree more.
So we're diving deep into just-in-time privilege, or JIT. We want to unpack what it is and, maybe more importantly, why it's such a big deal.
Right. And JIT, at its core, it's simple conceptually. It means users get access only when they actually need it.
Okay.
And crucially, just for a specific amount of time, for a specific job, then poof, it's gone.
Temporary, purpose-driven.
Exactly, which is totally different from, the old way of having admin accounts that are just always on, standing privileges.
Yeah, those always felt risky.
They are risky. Our sources really hammer this home. And what's interesting is JIT isn't just one little security trick. It's more like a whole strategy.
A comprehensive approach.
Yeah, with effects across the board, security, operations, everything.
Okay. So our mission today, then, is to explore the 4 core benefits of JIT that really jumped out from our sources.
Sounds good.
We want to show how it reshapes security, compliance, efficiency, and even credential management. Okay, let's unpack this. First up, the big one. Reducing the attack surface. Now, that term attack surface, can we break that down a bit? What does it really mean here?
Sure. Think of the attack surface as, well, all the possible ways an attacker could try to get into your systems or steal data.
All the doors and windows, basically.
Pretty much. And those permanent, always-on admin accounts, they're like unlocked doors left wide open all the time. Prime targets.
Makes sense. So how does JIT change that?
JIT just slams those doors shut most of the time. It gets rid of that standing access. So the insight isn't just, fewer targets. It's more fundamental.
How so?
It shifts the game. Instead of trying to prevent every single breach, which is almost impossible, you focus on limiting the damage if a breach happens. With JIT, a compromised account is only useful for a very short time, for a specific task.
So it contains the blast radius.
Exactly. It makes attacks much less rewarding. It cuts down exposure to credential theft, stops attackers moving laterally through the network easily.
Because the privileged access they might grab just vanishes.
Precisely. And it just drastically lowers the number of juicy targets available at any given moment.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. Smaller target. But, I can imagine someone's listening thinking, okay, but does this make things harder for my team, more hoops to jump through?
That's a fair question, a common one.
Yeah. Are we trading security for operational headaches? How does this actually provide business value without gumming up the works?
It's a good point, but the value comes from the automation and precision JIT brings. You're replacing those static admin accounts with quick, temporary privilege boosts right when needed. You use automated workflows for requesting and approving this access, which maybe counterintuitively can actually speed things up. We'll touch on that more later.
Interesting.
And it lets you do role-based access control, RBAC, much more effectively. Access based only on the job function, not these broad, sticky permissions.
Got it. And how does this fit into the bigger picture, like with regulations and standards?
Oh, it fits perfectly. Things like NIST 853, ISO 27111, CIS controls. They all push for minimizing privilege. Less standing access is better.
Right.
And then you have regs like SOX, which demand really tight auditable controls to prevent financial fiddling. JIT's time-bound logged access, that's exactly what SOX auditors want to see. It turns a manual check into something automated.
Makes audits easier.
Way easier. Same for GDPR, protecting personal data. You have to control and document who accesses that data. JIT makes that manageable. It's really about enforcing least privilege as a core principle.
Okay, so it tightens security and helps tick those compliance boxes.
Yeah.
Let's dig into that compliance angle more.
Yeah, definitely.
Because reducing the attack surface is great for security teams, but compliance often feels like this separate, complex burden. How does JIT help bridge that gap?
Well, the thing is, many regulations actually require strict controls on privileged access. It's not just a recommendation.
Mandates, you mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And JIT inherently delivers on those mandates because access is temporary by design and everything is logged.
So JIT isn't just helping compliance.
It kind of becomes your compliance mechanism for privileged access. It helps satisfy GDPR, IPA for healthcare data, PCI DSS for payment cards, NIST standards.
Because it provides that proof.
Absolutely. That detailed detailed audit trail, who got access, when, why, what did they do, it's all there. Plus, it massively reduces insider threats, another big regulatory concern, just by removing that unnecessary permanent access.
Right, less opportunity for things to go wrong internally or externally. So what are some practical things organizations do, like concrete steps?
Okay, common practices we see. Enforcing multi-factor authentication, MFA, for any JIT request. That adds another security layer right at the point of escalation.
Sure.
Using session recording. So literally recording what happens during a privileged session. Great for forensics if you ever need it.
Like a black box recorder.
Kind of, yeah. And implementing strict access expiration policies. The system automatically revokes the access. No forgetting, no manual cleanup needed.
Automation again?
Key part of it. And if you look at something like PCI DSS, requirements 7.1 and 8.1 are all about limiting access to cardholder data and using strong authentication. JIT nails both.
And AP.
Same deal. APA demands super strict controls on patient data access. JIT provides that granular, documented control. It just makes audits smoother, less painful, and seriously lowers the risk of those hefty non-compliance fines.
Okay, smoother audits, fewer fines. That's definitely a win. Now, let's talk about something that might surprise people. Operational efficiency.
Yes, the unexpected benefit.
Right, because usually you hear security and think slower, more checks, more delays. But the sources say JIT can actually speed things up.
It feels counterintuitive, I know. But think about the old way. Managing privileged access often meant tickets, manual approvals, waiting. It was slow.
Yeah, waiting for IT to grant access.
Exactly. JIT flips that. It automates the provisioning, the granting, and the deprovisioning, the revoking of access.
So the gain is removing the manual bottleneck.
That's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
JIT stops security being this gatekeeper slowing everything down and makes it an enabler. Less IT overhead managing accounts, faster workflows because access is on demand, and honestly, a better user experience.
How's the user experience better?
Because people get the access they need when they need it without navigating complex permanent permissions or waiting around. It's cleaner. This also brings us to a really key idea: zero standing privileges. ZSP.
ZSP. Zero standing privileges. Tell me more.
It's basically the goal state, a setup where no user, no system has permanent admin rights just sitting there.
No always-on keys to the kingdom.
Precisely. Every single privileged action requires temporary, deliberate elevation. And JIT is really the main way you make ZSP a practical reality.
Wow. Okay. That feels like a major shift.
Yeah.
So better security and faster operations in a move towards ZSP. How do companies actually implement this efficiently?
Good question. Integration is key. You can plug JIT workflows right into existing identity and access management IAM systems.
So it's part of the normal user management process.
Ideally, yes. Using dedicated privileged access management, or PAM solutions, is also common, as they're built for this kind of automation.
CAM solutions, okay.
And implementing self-service portals. Users can request the temporary access they need. It goes through an automated approval workflow, and boom, access granted quickly.
Empowering users, but with guardrails.
Exactly. And again, think compliance. SOX loves automated enforcement of controls. JIT provides that. Standards like FISMA and NIST 800-171 explicitly recommend automation to boost security and cut down on human error.
Fewer manual mistakes.
Right. JIT automates it, ensures only the right access happens in the right time frame. No guesswork.
Okay, that leads us nicely into the final benefit, which feels absolutely crucial. Limiting privileged credential misuse.
Yeah, this is huge.
Because stolen or misused admin credentials, that's nightmare fuel for any organization, right? How does JIT tackle this head on?
It tackles it by removing the main target, the persistent credential. If the powerful credential doesn't exist most of the time, it can't be easily stolen or misused long-term.
Ah, so it's not just about protecting the credential.
It's about making the credential itself temporary, ephemeral. JIT basically says, okay, you need admin rights. Here's a key that only works for the next hour for this one door, then it dissolves.
Dissolving keys, I like that.
It fundamentally stops standing admin privileges being abused, whether by an insider or an attacker who got in. And crucially, it stops compromised credentials being hoarded and reused later.
Because they expire.
Exactly. There's no later for that specific access. This is how you make zero standing privileges ZSP real. It seriously strengthens your overall security posture.
Zero standing privileges, again, it keeps coming back to that. What are some specific tactics or technologies used with JIT to achieve this?
Well, things like one-time use credentials or these ephemeral access tokens, they work once or for a very short time, then they're invalid. Useless if stolen after the fact.
Okay.
Also, privileged session management, actively monitoring, maybe even recording what happens during that temporary elevated session, like having a security camera watching over the really sensitive work.
Real-time oversight.
And, of course, regular reviews of the JIT access logs, looking for anything unusual, any patterns that don't fit.
Makes sense. And compliance-wise.
Ban direct links.
Yeah.
ISO 10701, Section 8.9.4.3 demands strict control over privileged access. JIT is that strict temporary control. GDPR Article 32 talks about limiting access to only necessary people. JIT embodies that just enough, just in time principle.
So the bottom line is,
The bottom line is JIT ensures privileged credentials just can't be misused outside their tiny authorized window. That slashes risk and makes demonstrating compliance much, much simpler.
so wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you listening? I think this deep dive really shows that just-in-time privilege, it's not just some niche tech fix.
No, not at all.
It feels more like a fundamental strategic shift.
Yeah.
It impacts, well, almost everything about digital security and operations. It really changes how we have to think about granting trust online.
Absolutely. It moves us way beyond basic access control. JIT is this holistic strategy, right? It cuts risk, makes audits way easier, boosts efficiency. It really lives that principle. Access on demand, not access hanging around permanently.
Right. Access on demand on permanence. I like that. So here's a final thought to leave you with, something that springs from all this.
If JIT and this push towards zero standing privileges mean access is never static, always temporary, always audited, what does that really mean for the future? How might it change our whole concept of trust and control in this digital world that's just constantly shifting under our feet? Maybe the idea of owning permanent access just becomes obsolete.